Hey, this is Tom, and let me tell you a little story. As a dad, the temptation to give my kids a piece of candy bar just to leave me alone is often overwhelming. I'm not gonna lie to you. I've engaged in this behavior before, and I'm sure that those of you who are parents have done the same. Now, you do it every once in a while, but for the most part, you gotta be the responsible adult. Make them eat vegetables and healthy stuff. I mean, you can't feed your kids candy bar. It's gonna be a disaster. Now, the reason I'm using this example, and I've used this before, is an analogy to what's going on with the market right now. We have the responsible adult, the guardian, the parent, whatever you want to call them, which is Jerome Powell. And on the other hand, we have the kids, really irrational, crazy bastards that want chocolate all day. And if they don't get chocolate, they get cranky, and there's a tantrum pretty much. And the word tantrum is actually very fitting because this is exactly what this market has become. A completely manic depressive kid that has got hooked on chocolate and can't process any sort of other food. So basically, why the market went up after the Powell speech just 2 days ago, then it went up a little bit more the next morning, and then it crashed down. Simple. If you ever seen a kid coming down from a sugar rush, exactly how it looks. 0 to 100 immediately, all the way to the top of the Everest, and then crashing down like a stone. Poof. Pretty much no energy, lackluster, completely passive, falling asleep. Pretty much Joe Biden. Now, jokes aside, Jerome Powell actually went on TV and didn't do the right thing. As the responsible adult, he was supposed to raise interest more aggressively and completely stop asset purchases. And yet, he chose the easy way out, basically kicking the can down the road. He pretty much gave the kids, in this case the stock market, a piece of candy bar. Now, the kids went crazy, like, whoa! All the way up to the Everest, as I mentioned earlier, but the crash, as always, comes very, very quickly. Just a day later, after an amazing morning, everything came crashing down. Why? Well, here's the answer for you. Since his speech basically told everybody, hey, the party is going to keep going like crazy. Next year, we're going to have very slight interest rates, but even the long-term goals is 2.5% interest. Now, for me, that is insane. If you're looking at a 10% inflation by the end of this year, probably Q1, at 2.5 interest, it's kind of, moronic, but, the market loved this news. But then two things happened. Number one, people with some brains started explaining this is just a bluff. They're going to have to raise interest much more aggressively. They're just doing this, to make you go away. Here's 2.5%. Leave me alone. Let me drink my coffee, pretty much. And the other piece of news came from Europe and rest of the world, essentially letting us know that Omicron might actually be a big deal after all. Despite not being as deadly, it seems, it's quite infective and, people are freaking out about it. Whether you believe it's actually more dangerous or not, that doesn't really matter. The only thing that matters is how the market perceives it. And the market perceived the news from Europe as very alarming. Now, you couple that with the inflationary happiness that came from the Powell speech, and you get exactly the recipe for the perfect storm that we saw yesterday. Everything crashing down in the later part of the day. Now, you also have to consider the fact that a lot of people are selling towards the end of the year to capture losses. If you think the stock market is going to be pretty much stationary for the next few months, and you can get away from the worst sale room, so you can sell, stay out for 30 days and come back in and basically get the loss, you're probably good to sell right now in 2021 and capture this loss this year. So a lot of people are assuming the market isn't going to go up in the next 30 days. They're selling now to capture the loss position, and then they're going to jump back in after the worst sale rule within 30 days. So those three factors are contributing to this later push we saw in the second half of the day, pushing the stocks down. Now, the question is, what am I doing with it? What's my strategy? What's my plan? Because I know fairly people have been asking me, well, Tom, what to do? We're seeing this clusterfuck play out in front of us, but we don't know what to do. So I can't tell you what to do because this is just my opinion. Might be inaccurate, might be wrong, might be the complete ramblings of a madman, as you should know. And I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just a dude on the internet. I can share with you my own opinion and my own strategy for myself. I'm basically looking in this and eating popcorn and enjoying what's going on right now. Not participating in this madness, pandemonium. Essentially, it's like Hunger Games, the first scene when everybody rushes towards the center and there's like a huge bloodbath. I'm going to hang back and see what happens. So I actually have a theory while this whole thing is going on right now is basically just a preview. Once the Fed actually comes out and admits that they were wrong again, like they did with the transitory thing, and they'll let everybody know that there's a bigger interest hike coming towards 3.5%, 4%, then the market would really crash. Because if somebody comes out and says 4% long-term interest rate, woo, then you'll see the real crash, and then I'm going to be buying in. So my strategy is just patience and wait for the Fed to basically come out and said that whatever they said a few days ago was just bullshit. That is going to be the bigger crash. Then I'm going to actually start deploying my money for the, buying the dip, so to speak. Now, I do want to talk about two additional tweets that I missed yesterday. Yesterday, I covered Elizabeth Warren basically getting scissored Milan by Elon Musk on Twitter, coming out and saying, well, the millionaire freeloaders have to start paying tax. What was more even kind of unprofessional of her, because she should have known he's about to pay $13 billion in tax this year, which is pretty much the highest tax bill in history. That is kind of unprofessional that she didn't know that. And I don't know which option is worse, if she didn't know it or she knew it, and despite it all, she went for the cheap brownie points from the floor. It's such a bottom-feeding thing to do. In any case, this is 2021. When you say stupid shit on social media, you get called out, which is exactly what happened to her. But after Elon called her out on the, on the factuals, basically saying, well, look at my tax bill, he basically said, well, he did the whole, here's 12 billion, screw off, let me do my thing. He actually went on the offensive, and it was nothing short of hysterical. Didn't see it yesterday. That's why I didn't react to it. In one tweet, he basically said, stop projecting, which I think is beautiful, bellissimo. Because essentially, the biggest freeloaders in society is the rich millionaire politicians, and them calling the guy who's dedicating his life to solving humanity's biggest problems and paying the biggest tax bill in history is kind of ironic. Now, the second was even funnier. He basically said, well, are you going to call the manager on me, Senator Karen? Which I thought was muy bellissimo. Well done, Elon. Well done. Now, I do want to talk about Rivian. The Q3 numbers came out, and we had some interesting numbers. So 350 deliveries, 350 vehicles, not 1,000. A total of 1 million in revenue. Yeah, 1 billion in loss. And a market cap of 100 billion in the stock market. Seems okay to me. In fact, this valuation is so detached from reality, it's even worse than my grandpa when he gets about these mind-reading satellites, which happens quite often. This valuation is even crazier. Now, to be honest, Rivian is a good company. They have probably the best chance of actually competing in this industry. I think much better than Lucid, for example, or companies like Arrival, or a lot of this EV initiatives, let's call them, hanging around to get the clout. I think Rivian is a good company. I think they will be a significant player in the market. I don't think they're going to be the leaders, but I think it's a great company, especially with Amazon money, the resources, and the pre-orders, which are real, by the way. So completely good company. The problem is, as I mentioned before, they're captive of their own valuation. When you get 100 billion price tag and you come out with Q3 losses like that, $1 billion loss and $1 million of revenue, it creates an opportunity for jokes like this. Now, truth be said, the financials are pretty normal. When you're starting ramping up in the first few years, a lot of capex expenses, a lot of money going out for very few cars coming in. It's kind of what scalability looks like. It's very hard. Now, we wouldn't have said a word about it if the valuation was 10 billion, which I think it should be, instead of 100 billion. So when Rivian gets to about 10, 15 billion, probably I'll buy a few shares. At 100, there's no way. No way at all. Now, I do want to talk about what just happened with Elon. He just sold more stock. I'm not going to go into why. I explained this in a whole different video about how he's doing it for tax purposes. That's not the point of this video. He's already at 75% of his designated 10% sale. And that means there's probably about a week left for him to complete his sales. Now, if you're getting into Tesla or you're considering getting into Tesla, I think a good time would be to wait for that week to pass and then get in, because every time he sells, the price pushes down. Not as much as other companies, because the Tesla community has brains and understand what's going on, but still, when you have so much supply, price does go down. So if you're considering increasing, DCAing, increasing your position, getting a new position in Tesla, whatever, I think in a week it's going to be a little bit cheaper. And then once he's finished selling, or probably a few days before, would be a good idea to get in. Just my 2 cents about it. And as always, a huge shout out to the channel members and the Patreons. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. Speaking of Tesla, there's a whole video I did explaining why Tesla will be probably one of the best stocks to hold during inflation. It's going to be right here. Go check it out if you haven't yet. And we have a Christmas special. You can subscribe right here for free for the channel. Hey, you watched all the way through to this video, and if you haven't subscribed yet, Probably a good Christmas gift for me. See you tomorrow.